Eyewitness identifications have long played an important role in the investigation and prosecution of crimes, but there's increasing evidence that eyewitnesses are not as reliable as we might think. Much of this evidence comes from the work of advocacy organizations like the Innocence Project, which has looked at post-conviction analysis of DNA evidence. There are a number of people who have been in jail for long periods of time, and there is DNA evidence which had never been looked at before. And this work has thus far led to the exoneration of over 300 people. It turns out that in approximately 3/4 of those cases, the individuals were convicted largely on the basis of eyewitness identification. These are cases in which we actually know the ground truth because we know we have the DNA evidence, we know the individual who was prosecuted and convicted was not at the crime scene, despite what the eyewitnesses said. Now, it turns out that there's actually a large body of data, basic research, that bears on how the visual system works, how visual perceptual experience happens, and how memory works, and how well we're able to retain information in memory. And these are the aspects of cognitive and perceptual function that are relevant to the problem of eyewitness identification. So this led the National Academy of Sciences, with the funding from the Laura and John Arnold Foundation, to look at this body of scientific data, to look at how eyewitness identifications are actually practiced today by law enforcement, and how eyewitness identification evidence is used by the courts. As a society, we depend very heavily upon eyewitnesses for the investigation and prosecution of crimes, but there is a general misunderstanding amongst the public about the extent and the reliability of visual perceptual experience and memory. It's often the case that we believe if somebody says, "I saw it with my own 2 eyes," that they're in fact correct. But the truth is, visual perceptual experience is very heavily influenced by context. It's influenced by a variety of factors that have nothing to do with what's actually out there in the world. It's influenced by our prior experiences with the world and our expectations. Memory is also mutable. Memory is not like a videotape recording of things that happened in your life. Memory is a constantly evolving record of the things that we've acquired through our experiences. Memories change with new information. And so when an eyewitness tells you that they saw something at a particular time under a particular set of circumstances, there are good reasons to call that into question. And the importance of this report is it raises these kinds of issues about the value of eyewitness identification, such that when an eyewitness goes into a courtroom or an eyewitness identifies somebody at a police station, those records are treated as a very special type of evidence, with recognition of the failures of eyewitness identification, the ways in which visual perceptual experience can be altered by context, and the ways in which memory can be changed with subsequent experiences. The committee produced a report which was released about a year ago, and in that report we make a number of recommendations for reform of this aspect of the criminal justice system. One area of recommendations concerns law enforcement and the practices used by police for collecting information, collecting identifications. This is typically done in the form of a lineup, and there are a number of ways, all that are part of the recommendations of the report, in which these lineup procedures can be improved. We can improve the objectivity of the identification and therefore improve the quality of the evidence that's used for investigation or prosecution of crimes. Another area in which we made significant recommendations is with regard to the use of eyewitness evidence in the courtroom. There are, as I implied, there are misunderstandings generally amongst the population about the validity of visual perceptual experience and memory. And recognition of that by the deciders of fact, by judges and by juries, is an important step towards reform. And we've made several recommendations to improve the quality of the use of that kind of evidence in the courtroom. The third area of recommendations concerns additional research. We found that there are a number of holes in the existing body of research. This research consists both of basic research on how visual perception and memory work, and applied research which is focused on the problem of eyewitness identification. And there are a number of variables that have been identified that influence the behavior of an eyewitness and the reports of an eyewitness. And what we'd really like to do is see what the combination of variables is that improves the performance of an eyewitness, that maximizes the chances that the eyewitness is giving an accurate report. And so additional research focused on that area might lead to additional reforms in the way both law enforcement, these identifications are practiced by law enforcement, and the way in which the evidence is used in the courtroom.